Sunday night and it's time for The Fix.
Our big hitter is Dr. Zweli Mkhize, Minister for Cooperative Governance. The rot in municipalities runs deep. Tonight we examine if government's turnaround plan can turn the tide. And in the look ahead, we unpack just who will replace beleaguered NPA head Shaun Abrams and the outcomes of the Cabinet Lekgotla. In the cool stuff, songstress and UN Goodwill Ambassador Yvonne Chaka Chaka talks about the purpose behind her music and her love for philanthropy. The Fix starts now.
This is The Fix, where every Sunday night, without fear or favour, we question the big hitters. We will look ahead to tell you what matters, and beyond politics, we look at the cool stuff South Africans are talking about. We begin with this week's big hitter. Joining us this evening is Dr. Zweli Mkhize. He's the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Minister, a very big warm welcome here to The Fix. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you very much, and good evening to you and to all the viewers.
Now, I don't envy you. You have an unenviable task. You have the task of fixing ailing municipalities that are not doing well, that are in many cases bankrupt, that don't have the kind of resources that are required. Earlier in the week, you of course announced some key elements of your turnaround plan. Let's just quickly remind our viewers what you said you will base this plan on.
You have a huge responsibility to improve the management of key infrastructure, especially in the predominantly black residential areas where people are suffering from constant outages of electricity or the breaking water pipes, leading to no water for days or even weeks, and indeed building the new infrastructure altogether. The teams are expected to build permanent capacity in these municipalities beyond project implementation. To improve monitoring, COCTA is exploring the acquisition of an ICT capability and an early warning system dashboard so that we are able to know things aren't going right even before we see barricades burning.
Barricades burning. Now, we've had a slow burn protest around shoddy delivery in our townships for decades now, Minister. This is your first stint in this, capacity. What do you think is the most important element to try and turn ailing municipalities around? I mean, they've got lots of problems, but if you were to isolate the one thing, what would it be?
Look, I think there are many things, and I don't think we can say just one issue. We've identified 5 key areas where we need to go and intervene from the point of view of cooperative governance. And the first one is to rebuild the capacity for governance in the administration of the municipality. Secondly is to deal with the issues of financial recovery to ensure that there's good revenue. Thirdly is to deal with infrastructure and service delivery issues. And fourthly is to deal with the issues of corruption. And fifthly is to deal with the issues of political instability. Mm-hmm. So all of those need an equal measure of attention, and they're all interrelated. And once we deal with all of them, then you can begin to see the difference. Only one won't make it.
Now, the Finance Minister, Nhlanhla Nene, recently made a shocking admission in Parliament. He said over 130, or I think 112 municipalities don't actually have budgets. They don't have the money to provide the basic goods and services that they're meant to provide for, the populations that they, of course, serve and the people who elected them. One of the big issues that we've seen recently, of course, also is the fact that several municipalities have been hit by the VBS scandal. They've had their
rand was deposited into the bank by the municipalities from the Northwest, Limpopo and Gauteng provinces. I met with the mayors on Tuesday. We have urged the provincial COCTA departments and the affected municipalities to work on recovery plans to augment possible service delivery to avoid possible delivery disruptions due to the budget shortfall as a result of the loss of investment. All municipalities are expected to report to COCTA on the issues around the finances and the impact on service delivery within a month, and the South African Reserve Bank is doing a forensic investigation on this matter. We have already contacted the Auditor General, and the meeting between Treasury, COCTA and the Reserve Bank and the Auditor General will sit together to look into the approach of how this problem will be dealt with by the Auditor General.
Now, the matter you say is going to be dealt with by the Auditor General. What I want to first ask you, Minister, is exactly how many municipalities have put money into VBS? We know of the 22 in Limpopo, but if I'm not mistaken, we're also talking about municipalities in the Free State as well as the Northwest. How many municipalities are affected by the crisis at this bank?
At the beginning, there were over 20, but a number of those have actually withdrawn their money. So those that are affected, the number is around 14.
1-4.
They are in 3 provinces, in Northwest, in Gauteng, and in Limpopo. The majority are in Limpopo, where about 8 of them are involved, and that the total involved is 1.1 billion rand of all those municipalities, and then the other 2 provinces are around 3 each.
Now, what is interesting for me, Minister, is of course that there is a difference between what is called a mutual bank and a commercial bank. And we have legislation, in fact, the Municipal Management Finance Act restricts municipalities from banking with mutual banks. It prescribes that they should only open bank accounts with registered commercial banks. How did it happen that all of these municipalities were in fact banking with a mutual bank?
Well, the argument is that the issue of opening a primary account, and that's a bank where you run transactions. All the municipalities have got that account with the banks that are registered in terms of the Banking Act. Then those that got into mutual bank argue that they were actually investing. They were not running
But they're still in violation of the Treasury regulations.
That's how we interpret it, and we have made that point very clear that they shouldn't have used the mutual bank, and therefore that's why we started the process of the actions that we wanted to take. And from where we sit, the first issue with them, we've said that we needed all of them investigated, and we've agreed now that provincial COCTA and provincial Treasury are doing the investigations, and all of them are going to cooperate. And once the investigations are done, the matter must be tabled to the councils so that there's consequences for those who need to be acted upon, both internally and in terms of the criminal investigations where necessary. And out of that process, they'll be reporting to us. Secondly, we've also said that they've got to go and restructure their budget. In the first instance, they've got to make sure that communities are not immediately affected by the problem of the investment, but at the same time, they must go out and explain to communities what they've done. And out of all of that process, we're getting regular reports of how the investigations would have proceeded.
All right, Minister, thank you so very much. We're going to take a short break now. We've seen recently in the city press, in fact today, that the Limpopo Provincial Executive Committee had met with the African National Congress top 6 to try and present a political solution to this mess around VBS. We are in possession of the presentation that they've made. After the break, Peter Bruce, columnist at the Sunday Times, will join me in conversation with Dr. Mkhize as we unpack his turnaround strategy and, more importantly, how one can intervene politically in what is clearly a forensic matter that should actually follow criminal actions. Don't go anywhere.